Hello, Laura and Andrew. How are you guys today?
Kevin, we're doing great.
Doing well.
So glad to have you. So glad to get to talk to you again. Um, it's an honor and a privilege to speak once again with husband and wife duo Andrew and Laura, who are the band Three Pairs of Boots. And I love that name, by the way. We'll talk about that in a moment. They released the title track earlier this month from their upcoming studio album called Boot Scootin', which is being released on September 27th, I believe, or September 27th. Um,
Correct.
and I'm just so grateful to be talking to both of you today. It's like reconnecting with friends after a period apart.
Oh, 100%. It's great.
Just like we talked to you last week,
It feels like it, doesn't it? It really does feel that way. I was so excited to find out that you guys had new music coming out and that we were going to get a chance to talk again. So I'm so grateful for your time and to be able to talk to you guys. So I always like to, just for people who might not have heard our conversations before, ask you how your band name came together. I know, but I want, and you know, but we want them to know if they haven't heard about it before.
Well, when we first started this project 5+ years ago, something like that, we had a good friend of ours, Happy Sanchez, who we've done a lot of projects with over the years. And he came in to sort of give us a jump start, help with some songwriting. And I thought, well, he might end up, being full-time, which he didn't. He moved on to other things. But I was trying to think of a name that would include, that would indicate that they were three of us doing this project. And I don't know where the boots thing came from, but somehow Three Pairs of Boots just sort of popped into my head. I can't really remember how or why, but there it was, like, okay. And it's so hard to find a band name. And some band names which are successful, very successful, can seem on its own not particularly inventive. There's a record store near here. It's actually a very interesting place called Folklore, and it's we stumbled upon it and looked in. It's like, oh, it's a record store. We walk in and there's a bar, and then the owner comes up and hands us a menu for lunch and dinner. It's like, wait a second, really? It turns out it's a bar, it's a restaurant, it's a record store,
Huh?
and she has a low FM wattage radio station in there.
Wow.
Yes. Anyway, so a friend of ours, they have a mystery bag that you can buy with 3 records for $5. But you can't look inside. So a friend of ours bought us a mystery bag as a gift, and opened it up, and there was a record, The Best of Bread. And I thought, who would sit around and say, let's call the band Bread? But there it was, and they had a successful career. And so you never know. I mean, so again, not easy to find a good band name. And somehow Three Pairs of Boots seem to be unique and different and memorable. So there you go.
I would agree. I would agree. It would be hard, and your name is definitely unique. I have a book of rock names. It's interesting, and when I go through it, it's so funny to read the stories. And some of the people that were interviewed about their band's names say that the fans have run with these stories for years and years and years, and they're just nowhere close to being true. You know, like the band Toto, for example, they were saying, the fans have built this whole thing up over the years that it has that Bobby Kimball's real last name is Toto with the EAU, and that he says it couldn't be further from the truth, and something to do with the Wizard of Oz and all these different things. It's just so interesting what the fans could even start to, to it gives them some room to kind of speculate. What would that name mean? Three Pairs of Boots. What would that mean? So it's kind of fun, but it is hard. Like you said, it's hard to come up with a name that nobody else has come up with, that doesn't sound cliche, that doesn't sound bland. And I think you guys have done something really cool with this, because it's a lot of fun.
And our friend Happy, who was in at the very beginning, helped us do a little bit of songwriting, and then Laura and I just sort of took off and ran with it. He's back playing bass with us. We're sort of doing a little rehearsing and getting ready to do some live gigs, some acoustic things. So he's back. He sort of comes in and out of our life for many years. He's a very good friend. So
I was going to ask you about that actually, Andrew, because I was watching the video for Boot Scootin' and I saw a third pair of shoes, at least, maybe not boots, but shoes on the stage. And I was wondering if that was Happy. Was that Happy?
that is Happy. Yes.
I was Happy. Okay. So I did see three people on that stage and I thought, and I don't know if I've ever seen footage that had Happy in it or not. Maybe in some of the earlier things at the beginning, I can't remember, but I thought that might be Happy.
Well, he asked because we were doing some rehearsing and we played a few gigs with him. Did some acoustic trio things, and then when we asked him to do the video, he said, "So, does this mean I'm a third pair of boots again?" Well, you're on your way. So
That's great. That's great. When that kind of came back together, and he jokes about that, he suddenly had the time and was kind of inching back towards kind of wanting to be involved, see what you guys thought of it, or was it more like you guys kind of asked him what he was doing these days?
he had a different band going, several actually. He's done a lot of Latin music, and I've actually played in his bands. There was a band called Los Mocosos, which I was in at the very beginning, and then later on he had another band called the Hispanic All Stars. And he drafted me to play bass in the beginning, which was great for me because I played a lot of bass through the years, but that gave me a lot of confidence to take on playing a lot of the bass parts on the Three Pairs of Boots records, which I've mainly done. We had a bass player in the first record, and then I kind of took over for the next three records, although we had a really good bass player from Nashville do a couple tracks for us on the latest record. But then, the guitar player dropped out of Hispanic All Stars, and I went on to switch over to guitar. And eventually, those two projects sort of ran its course. I mean, the Hispanic All Stars was 12 guys.
Wow.
You just imagine, try to get 12 musicians in the same room to practice. He actually had a very good strategy for that. He had the band used three different drummers, a couple different keyboard players, different horn players. So whoever was available would do a rehearsal or two before the gig. So there were certain players, like I was always there, Happy was always there, the other two singers were always there, but otherwise they were just interchangeable parts. Anyway, so those sort of ran its course, and we started doing some live stuff, and he said, "Hey, are you available? You want to play bass?" And he was like, "Yeah," because I'm tired of doing the Latin thing. I want to do the country thing. So back he came.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great way to kind of organically evolve back to him coming back home to his where
Actually,
he
Laura knew him before I did.
really.
Yeah.
He's an old friend. He owned and still owns these rehearsal studios that my then band and I would rehearse at. So yeah, I know him before you. He's been a good friend.
Yeah,
And sometimes, oh, I'm sorry.
he owns several now. When Laura first met him, he had a building that he was renting where he had two rehearsal rooms and I think a recording studio. He now has two buildings. One has 150 rehearsal rooms, and the second building has 50 rehearsal rooms.
Wow.
And pretty much always booked.
That's great. That's great.
When you live in a big city, you can't always rehearse at home.
Right. Oh, that's great. It's a testament to his I guess his passion for the business and the music, to be able to have a space for other people to perform and to earn a living that way, to be able to perform and have the money to perform and have that be maybe more the income and whatnot, and then be able to just enjoy the music and not feel like the music has to be the means to the end. It's for enjoyment.
It's not all roses running that kind of a business. Yeah, it's very cool and interesting and fun. At the same time, imagine trying to collect rent from musicians for 150 different rehearsal rooms. Let's just say that some of them don't quite pay on time.
I would imagine that could be a little sticky sometimes, and I could also imagine that when you're doing rehearsal time, sometimes it's down to the minute, sometimes it's per hour, whatever, but probably splitting hairs. Well, by the time we got in that room and we set up the equipment and blah, 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 blah. And then there's this negotiation, and he probably didn't sign up for that when he did this. He said, I just want to, have
He
some
did.
experience.
He had some hourly rooms, but he pretty much transitioned away from that. All the rooms are now monthly.
Oh,
So bands just rent them by the month.
so it really is like me renting an apartment out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe that's even harder because, like you said, the landlord comes to collect for the month, and they've had a month to squander the money that they've earned from their gigs and their side jobs, and then have to make an excuse for the landlord at the end of the month.
I tell him he's got some great stories. He should call Netflix
I'm,
and rip this out. It's so funny.
I'm sure he could come up with a pretty good reality show on
Oh,
5 days at the 5 days at the rehearsal room. Something kitschy. I don't that's not kitschy. I came up with that. That's not kitschy. I'm not Netflix material here. But I mean, like, I'm sure they can come up with something kind of wild and crazy to make it sound enticing,
It'd be a great addition to the Netflix roster.
Yes.
Misadventures of Happy Sanchez and Secret Studios.
Now, see, that was a lot more creative. That was a lot more creative than anything I could say over here.
Because we've known him for a long time, so we can really peg what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, it's great that he's back doing this. I guess because it's just another person in the fold, another creative force to kind of someone that you're comfortable with. That you obviously, if you aren't, it'd still be the two of you, and you're obviously comfortable along the lines, long-term relationship, friendship, and to get to bounce ideas off each other again, and if anything, just playing together again.
It's interesting because he's playing bass with us now, the perspective that he went, and I have done it as well, bouncing between Latin and country. And I played bass briefly in the Hispanic All-Stars, and he's playing bass with us now, and played bass for a long time with Los Macosos, his other band. But there's some real similarities between those two genres from a bass playing perspective. There's a lot of walking, sort of almost swing like walking in both of those genres. So he transitioned very quickly and very easily over to doing Three Pairs of Boots when he was previously doing a band that was kind of Tito Puente meets War meets Tower of Power.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
There's like was no drop off at all. So
That's great. Since we're talking about bass for a moment here, and then you said you've been, working on your bass playing to be able to record some of the parts early on, before Happy was back in the fold here, and I'm sure you still do some doubling and different things when you're recording at home, and you don't have the luxury of all three of you being there at once, overdubbing something possibly. Who do you have a favorite bass player that, like, in the world of any genre, but that you really think, boy, this is the guy or the girl who's really got something happening with their bass playing?
well, I really love bass players who play in the pocket. I can't remember his name, who played all the Stax records with Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn, or can't remember, there was a duck in there somewhere with his name. He's a great player. Carol Kay from the Wrecking Crew.
Oh, okay.
Just
So tasty.
very
Come up with great riffs, that they would use. These bands would come and just take it away. I mean, because she's so creative.
kind of
Right.
How I think about the musicians I've met in Nashville. Really, really talented, but don't really play with their ego. They play what's right for the song. They know how to let it breathe. Man, I love like a player like Jaco Pastorius.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible player. And fit very well playing with Weather Report, and did great with Joni Mitchell. But I like the bass players who groove, man. I mean, another one of my favorites, although he's maybe my least favorite Beatle, but I think he's a great bass player, Paul McCartney. And he's got a very kind of old school tuba-like um, uh, feel to his playing.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's another person who really influenced me a lot, I think, as a bass player. So I think it's the guys who play in the pocket really are kind of my favorites, not the monster chops kind of guys.
Right. Right. They just keep that rhythm section. They just keep it going, and they're the glue that's keeping that rhythm section going, and just the style. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
What about regular guitar? What about electric guitar, acoustic guitar? Is there anybody that you think is just that, because that's where your main is, acoustic guitar, a little bit of electric here and there, I'm sure.
It's interesting. It's been I've had quite the journey as a guitar player. When I first started out, it was all about lead guitar. And even though I grew up in the Bay Area in California, I didn't really like the San Francisco bands. That was not my cup of tea. I like the English guys who were really channeling the blues guys, Jimmy
Yeah.
Page, Beck, Peter Green, Clapton, and Jimi Hendrix. They were all they were channeling Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Lightning Hopkins and all those players. That to me was like the real soulful thing that I got into. And from them, I like one of the first records I really learned how to play to, which I discovered through those guys, was Albert King, who was one of my favorite blues guitar players. So early on it was lead guitar players, but as I continued as a musician and playing music and studying and getting into songwriting, it really became more about songwriters, composers, and they became probably more in tune with what I like to do. I love having I studied playing lead guitar and playing solos, which is a real art to that. It's very improvisational. It's a great thing to have in your bag. But I'm really, and Laura as well, we are real melody hounds. So we really gravitated more towards songwriters. And I realized that there are some guitar players that I didn't know how much of an influence they really had on me until I really got into doing the whole Americana thing. A lot of the country players, I remember seeing Jerry Reed and Roy Clark on TV.
Yeah.
These guys are incredible players. I stumbled upon, there's a festival in San Francisco called Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, and they have like 6 stages. It's a free festival in Golden Gate Park. They have lots of different bands in there. It's not just country and bluegrass. We saw Patti Smith there one year.
Wow.
I stumbled upon this guy named Marty Stewart.
Marty Stewart, huh? Yeah.
Fabulous superlatives. It's just like,
Yes.
wow,
Yes.
who is that guy? He was
so amazing.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
He's a showman.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's like it's not fair that someone could be that good on the mandolin. But players like Stephen Stills, a huge influence on me. Pete Townsend, who I think is like one of the best, maybe the best rock rhythm guitar player. We did a solo gig a couple of years back up at a brewery in Northern California. Like literally, it's like on the ocean. The outdoor stage looked out upon the ocean. And after the show, Happy was there with his wife. That was just when Laura and I were playing. And afterwards, he said, you got some Pete Townsend in there. I said, oh, well, thank you.
That's a big, yeah, right.
That's a huge compliment. That was an interesting place to play. It was this brew pub out at Shelter Cove up in Northern California. And it's like the most dangerous, windy road for an hour or 2 hours to get there. And the brewery sits a little bit up away from the coast. You can see the ocean, but below it, when we were there, like you can see there are planes coming in and taking off because there's a landing strip below the brewery, right next to the coast.
Oh,
And that was, first and probably the last time we'll ever play on a stage where while we're playing or before or after, we're seeing planes land like right in front of us.
Yeah, that sounds really like a unique, once in a lifetime experience for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's cool.
So I think that, a lot of those guitar players who are not, the fancy rock and roll lead guitar players, a lot of the country guys, just it seeped into my subconscious. So I really, as I became more of a songwriter and less of a show off, those guys really had a big influence on me.
Laura, how about you as far as a vocalist? If whatever style it might be a blues vocalist, it might be a jazz vocalist, rock, pop. Who do you call as your either influences or just people that you really admire what they've done, or they're just on this other worldly level?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I was also a victim of the British invasion.
Uh-huh.
I was very influenced by that happening. And so I loved seeing all these boy bands at the time. And, I couldn't help feeling like, oh, well, I want to sing with them, even though it was all guys. And it's like, no, I want to sing with them. And
Yeah.
but personally, it was just, they had such great energy and the songs are great. But for me, like the singers, I love, I have very lofty goals, which I will never attain. But these singers like Dusty Springfield, she always grabbed me. More contemporary people like Kate Bush. But then there was Chrissy Hind, who,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's her voice is so amazing. And it's deceptive, because you think, oh, she makes it look so easy, but she's a very good singer. But then I feel guilty because there's so many other singers, that I adore, like Diana Ross. There's just so many different genres, so many great singers. We're so lucky, our generation.
We really are. We really are, I think, because I mean, when you look to today's music, I guess the industry, the way things work, it's just you don't get, unless you spend a lot of time on the internet, on YouTube or on different social media platforms. There's still a lot of talent out there. Still a lot of talent, a lot of melodic talent, but you really have to search for it because the radio doesn't embrace that so much as it might in some cities, yes, and sometimes country and Americana music, different types of genres that fit into what you're doing. You can get that airplay, in these cities, and it builds and builds and builds. But in the rock part of the business, the pop, other genres, classical stations going away, some country stations going away to just be today's country only, and not even going back to the Randy Travises and the Vince Gills and the Tim McGraws, Faith Hills, all that stations that are just playing the current country, So it's a unique time, but we really, I mean, when you look at the history before the 50s and you look at the history going forward here, it was a very unique time. Is our current world going to produce people that we grew up listening to and enjoying?
Interesting question. I think that I don't know the answer to that, but when we were coming up, there were these tastemakers,
Yeah.
maybe great DJs that could introduce you to some beautiful music. But nowadays the kids have these aggregators, right? It's in Spotify. So if I choose Dusty Springfield, and they're going to start throwing stuff to me that's in that genre, and then I can discover new singers that way, which is always fun. Just today, our son he sent me this track I'd never heard before. It was Serge Gainsbourg, and it was a really beautiful song, but it was cracking me up. It was this song had to be from 1968 or something. It was cracking me up because there was one track running along his, it was very French and almost talking it. But then there was one track where you could hear someone crying. It was audible, like crying. And I thought, this is crazy. I love this so much. And there's this track of crying. I'm gonna have to get that song and send it to you because
Yes,
it
please.
impressed me.
Yeah, yeah. This it's unique what happens, and this just accidentally takes us in a different path here for a second, but based on what you're saying, so people are remixing and taking an old track from the 60s and putting crying on there and doing all sorts of different things. How about the fact that we're in this world right now with AI music and people saying, I'd like to write a song in the style, or make me a song in the style of Mick Jagger and Aretha Franklin. And it brings it up and it sounds hauntingly like the two of them. Or even in the world of books, write me a book report with sloppy writing of a fifth grader with grammar mistakes. How do teachers navigate in the world with that happening, and how do musicians navigate when are we going to have to prove that we really wrote what we wrote anymore?
Great question. Yeah, I don't know how we resolve this.
I think songwriter or people who take the shortcut by using AI, I think to me they're missing the joy of the challenge and the struggle and the happiness that comes with playing an instrument and facing the difficulties and the great accomplishment you can get by really playing music, really feeling it, as opposed to you have AI write you a song. It's just, I don't think it can't be the same.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I just, it's kind of sad. I mean, it's fun for maybe someone who like really just loves to mix up beats and sounds, just to, he's sitting there on the couch and just pressing some buttons and hearing some different things happen. But when it starts to become something that catches, I mean, I shouldn't quote this because I can't remember who it was, but it was a hip hop singer and a pop or electronica singer. And this person did this AI recording of these two people, unbeknownst to either one of them, and it started getting tons and tons and tons of hits on the internet. And people were pushing these two real artists to make this song. And the artist said, I want no part of it. I don't want a part of this. And they were having millions of streams on it, and it wasn't created by either one, but they had their likelihood, their sound, and said, I don't want any part of this. I record my own songs, and I've never worked with this other person. I don't want to work, and nothing personal, but I write my own songs, and it just didn't have the ending that maybe the thousands of fans that were listening to it thought it would have. Like, oh, they'll record it. So it's just like you said, they miss the meaning of organically creating something that's your own, and nurturing it and going through some troubleshooting, like you said. There's obviously some troubleshooting, and that's how you learn. That's how you improve your craft of songwriting, of playing, of singing, of whatever. And you don't do that when you're pressing some buttons on a computer.
Yeah, they need to use AI responsibly. I don't know.
There you go.
Does it mean that us human beings are replaceable? Shades of Terminator,
right?
When the computers take over.
Always scary to think about some of those things, but I think as a human race, we persevere in our craft of what we do in life. And I think no matter, we've seen these kind of trends come and go. We've seen that musical theater has these pit orchestras that have a keyboard player and a drummer on electronic drums, and that's it. And everything is coming out of the trumpets and everything. And then you got the ones that go back full circle and have these full orchestras. And even the young people will say that, boy, that sounds so different than just that one guy playing keyboard. So I think we go through these phases and we get our art back.
Yeah, and I can't help but think that a lot of the kids coming up now, there are going to be some throwback kids, right? Who, they're into jazz of the 30s, or they want to dress like they're from the 20s. I mean, I see a lot of youngsters, if you will, who really pay homage to
like our son, who picked up guitar when he was around 15, and he went through the Nirvana, Green Day thing, and he ended up wanting to play like Django Reinhardt.
Mm-hmm.
Because he just was sort of eventually led there. So he started current and went to the throwback.
And it happens. It happens for sure. And to reinforce it even further, so I teach music lessons, and it's so encouraging when some of these kids come in with the songs that they chose, sometimes from their parents, because they're, like the throwbacks, like you said, these different artists that maybe their parents had playing in the background when they were growing up or today. Some of them they explore on their own and find them. Lounge singers, like like you were talking about the people in the 20s and 30s. I mean, some of the songs and it's so comforting to me as a teacher to hear these kids wanting to sing these songs and wanting to listen to these voices and these instruments. It's so cool to see that there's hope. So I always swore I would never generalize that the upcoming generations were losing touch with music, because in the mainstream, you'd be led to believe that, but in smaller circles, you learn that no, they're listening to some pretty neat things.
I mean,
That's so great to hear.
it was
Yes.
interesting to see the transition that took place with our son, who, like I said, initially started out Green Day and Nirvana, and
Yeah.
then, after about a year or 9 months, whatever, he came into the studio and said, "Can you teach me this James Brown song?" And then it was, "Can you teach me this Johnny Cash song?" And then he's become a big fan of Elliott Smith.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going a little deeper there.
A little off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So, and he sort of went to the Elliott Smith, Django Reinhardt thing. It's just interesting. And all the musician friends that we know, it's interesting to see their path as to how do they get to the people that really influence them, and all the people that they absorb, or musicians that they absorb on their journey, and it's become part of us.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't think, we're not a straight country act. Country is a big influence on us, but we're a little bit of an outlier just because we don't quite neatly fit into a genre. Americana is the closest thing because we have a lot of country and a lot of folk as in our influences, but there's a lot of other musicians who have really touched us that somehow seep into this thing we are doing, for Three Pairs of Boots. So I find it really interesting, and that's probably one of the most important things for me, and maybe for Laura too, is that besides, we want to make music that people like, but we need to really feel it and like it, in order to really call it our own and want and feel good enough to release it.
And if you had to, or if you felt the need to try to fit into a box of a certain genre, that's when the fun sometimes stops, because you're like, no, we kind of got this in us too. Let's step outside the box a little bit. So it's kind of fun to step outside the world of Americana or country and kind of turn it on its side for a moment and just kind of let it go where it goes. And I think your fans will enjoy that too, and do enjoy that.
Even with songwriting, on the current record, Scootin, I really made a conscious effort for my songs, because we wrote about 50-50. I've got, about half the songs on the record I wrote, and she wrote half of them. For me, I was trying new things. I wanted to break out of my sort of fall back on my comfort zone approaches to songwriting, and just wanted to try something different. I wanted to try to get better as a songwriter. So that, for me, looking at the album, the Boot Scooting album, was, from the songwriting perspective, I really was trying some new things and some different approaches. And from a production point of view, when it came to producing the songs that Laura wrote, I was really trying to get outside what I normally would just sort of fall back on as well, trying to push Laura into doing some things that were different and at times uncomfortable for her, but she just came through, doing fantastic performances on some things that she was challenged in the studio. But yeah, how was that experience?
Yeah, there are a couple of songs where it's like, I did not write the song this way. So what are we doing again? What are we
Yeah.
are you taking this? And then, okay, I have this idea for these harmonies. And I'm like, oh no, I don't think I can do that. And so, yes, you can. No, I don't think so. No, well, just try it. And he kept pushing and pushing. And eventually I think I did what you were wanting, but, yeah, because I'm not in your head, and I didn't, I was not expecting like this one song I'm thinking of in particular, of course. The way you were taking it was such a departure from the original.
I wanted her, there's one particular line in there, I wanted her to channel a little Chris Stapleton kind of, and she didn't think she could do it, and she did do it, and she did it very well. Interesting enough, as I was sort of pushing to her to sort of get out of her comfort zone and really sort of, do what, what I was thinking, what I wanted to try in expanding what we were doing, is that she ended up then coming up with a number of things, especially on the backgrounds. There's a lot of interesting harmonies that I never would have thought of in a million years, but just sort of pushing her into that space, she would take it beyond where I thought it was going to land, and coming up with even better and more interesting pieces. And it's so amazing for me, and it still happens all the time in the studio when she's singing on a track somewhere and she does something unexpected. It's like, oh, yes, we're keeping that. And she, of course, is so in the zone that she's like, what did I do? Like, I don't know. She's so deep that she shouldn't have the perspective. I, of course, had the advantage of sitting back and listening. So I think it's a lot harder for the performer to know when they've done something great necessarily. But I'll know it when I hear it.
Sometimes we'll get so in the weeds, for example, that and Andrew will have a particular note in mind, and he'll say, oh, I heard this, and so I'll do it, and he's like, oh, no, you're not doing it, it's this note that goes like this, and I can't hear it, and I don't know why, but sometimes I get stuck and you get so frustrated with me, like, it's right, it's just this, whatever, and I don't hear, I can't do it, and then finally it's like, oh my God, it took me 20 minutes, and there's that note, and where was this note all my life? I never knew this note existed. It's right between this note and that note, and
and sometimes
yeah,
when she gets there, then it's like, oh no, actually that doesn't work.
Oh,
let's try this instead.
Yes. Whenever this happens, I said, Andrew, this means it's not going to work. You're not going to like it in the end. So we're spending all this time on this, finding this one note.
Are there ever nights then when Andrew says, so Laura, where are we going for dinner tonight? And after a long day of recording, and Laura says, my food's in the fridge. I don't know where you're going for dinner tonight.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it can get intense in there because we're both, very
creative, artistic minds, I would think, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Kevin, I mean, sometimes it can get intense, but then okay, so this happened many, many years ago. I think we're pretty good with each other, but one time, this was maybe 10 years ago, we were working on another project and we had a manager at the time, and we got in this big fight, and I remember it was storming out and everything, and didn't you call him and say, okay, we're done, we're not doing this song?
We had a big fight. Laura left the studio. I called our manager, and he said, get back in the studio. This is when the creativity really happens. Oh, we hate each other? Okay.
We went back to work, we were all grumpy, and it turned out, the project turned out really great.
Yeah, that song turned out really good.
So just keep going, people.
It was storming. There was like a big, what we didn't know at the time, but it turns out there were several trees that are lined on the street next to our house, and they were kind of dead. And there was a big tree that crashed in front of the garage. So even if one of us wanted to leave and get away from each other, we couldn't have, because we couldn't get out of the garage.
It was biblical. Like, no, you will.
Yes. Divine intervention. That tree went down. No one's going anywhere. Finish that song, right?
We tend to, especially for vocal sessions, they really know how to get what I'm looking for from Laura. We don't do marathon 10-hour vocal sessions. I really want the freshness and the spontaneity. I don't, I'm not usually, as a producer, I'm not keeping take 56. Usually it's somewhere within the first 3 to 10 passes for her.
Wow.
Because I want that freshness. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm not looking for perfection on the Three Pairs of Boots records. I'm looking for the right emotion and the right feel. So we tend to do more, 3 to 4 hour blocks for singing performances. And we'll do, we're always, sort of, I always have her come in at the beginning of when we're tracking the song to do a demo vocal track. So I have a, part of the roadmap because I'm creating arrangements and moving things around. And there's a fair amount of time when what's kept as the final vocals comes from the demo performances, when she's first learning or first perfecting her feel for the song. And there's that freshness, that seems to outweigh the perfect take on take 47,
Right.
That's perfect, but it doesn't feel.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what song it was, I can't remember, but we had done the demo, and then a month or two later, I came back to do the real tracking for it, and Andrew was saying, something's not right. I don't know what it is. Let me go back and listen to the demo. And it was the same melody, but I had sang it so different. And we wanted to go back to the first way I sang it. So that's what we ultimately did. But I don't know what it is about that first time.
What song was that?
No.
Okay. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just looking for where's the magic? Especially with the vocals, because this band really, it revolves around the lyrics, the vocals, and so you want that magic. That's, as a producer, that's what I'm looking for before, ultimately that's the bar.
And it could get to a point of being just too polished, where you just like that raw moment where it's just the vocal, like you said, I think you were saying, better than track 47, an early track where it just was raw, you're just learning it, and it just had a little more of the flavor of the style of the song than something that sounded just like 47 was just, really good, but this was raw and emotional, and that was more, so it's interesting. Some people go more towards that, just make it a perfect studio sound, and some people say we just want it to sound live. We want it to sound like it was like that. Even if it was take 5, did it sound like it was take 1, the demo, or the whatever it was.
Like I said, I know it when I hear it, and
Right.
I know it when I don't hear
He
it.
does
Also,
say that a lot. Like I'll say, "Oh, that was the take, honey. I'm done." It's, great. Let's wrap it up. No, that wasn't it, and I get so upset. In
Right.
with my little lights and my that was it. I know that was it. I say, you better save that one because.
Well, we do. I save, every pass that she's doing. We're using Pro Tools, and I'm saving every pass because you never know when the right pass is there. And I would never say that I know absolutely every time I get the right pass. It is possible I could go back to, 3 passes before and go, oh, that was the one, or that verse was the one. Of course, Laura doesn't have quite the cachet as our manager we worked with for a while was years ago was A&R at Arista, and he was working with Aretha Franklin, and he tells a story about being in the studio with her. He's in the control booth, and she's out tracking, and she does a take, and presses a button and says, "Okay, that was good, but let's try it again." She's like, "No, I'm Aretha. That was good enough. We're done." kind of hard to argue with Aretha, you know.
Yeah, the Queen of Soul. Can't do too much with that. Too
And
hard.
knowing who our that manager was, who's still a friend of ours, I don't particularly agree with him a lot of the time. So not that I was at that session, but I bet Aretha was right as opposed to him. So
Well, let me ask this question then. So, you know how Laura had said that there's sometimes when there's a track, there's a take that is just in your mind, Laura, it feels like perfect, okay? And then Andrew, you're feeling at the moment that there's still some more magic to be done. If has there ever been a time when you've gone back and you said you go back and sometimes you hear it later on. Has it ever been the one that she said you have put a little star next to that one so that if it is that one, you could say, Laura, when we did take 3 of that, or do you say, oh, that's the one she said was good? And I don't know if I could, if I could admit
I would
my.
never tell her.
Yeah.
No, but there's times when she's felt that way, and since I keep all the recordings, when we take a break, she'll come into the studio, and we'll listen back, and then finally she gets a chance to have the perspective that she may not have when she's so in it.
Focused in the moment, concentration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
I want to take a sidebar here for a moment because we're talking about, the relationship in music, the relationship that the struggles and the good moments and the moments where you're on the same path and the moments where you might differ a little bit. I think it's also interesting just I'd ask you to tell the story again about how the two of you came together as a couple and eventually got married within, I believe, a year of starting to know each other.
Yeah, I had answered an ad in a music magazine. Andrew was looking for a singer for a studio project. I was playing with band and I was sick of them. Because I had worked and done jingles before, and I just thought I want to do something completely different from a rock band or whatever. And so yeah, I guess I went over to your house. It was you and your co-writer at the time. And I remember thinking, ooh, maybe this wasn't a good idea because it was dark where you lived. And I remember
The studio was down
it was don't come in the front door.
Right, the studio was on the bottom floor. Go around the back.
Getting that creepy feeling. But then I saw him and I was like, oh, he's fine. So
no axe murderer here.
Yeah. I could take him. No problem. So yeah, and it was, we started off, he hired me that night. I remember that. And
well, I was working with a lyricist who had no experience as a musician or working in a studio. He was a poet. And so we had 50 people answered the ad that we placed. And I actually, after weeding through them all, I invited 2 of them to the studio. There was a guy, and then there was Laura. And I was telling my co-writer that okay, when these people come, you can say nice things, whatever, but we'll decide after they leave if we want one of them to actually continue with us on the project. And the guy who came in and sang, he was good. Say thank you, see you later. And then Laura came in and she sang through one song once, and I stopped the song and said, okay, you're hired. And my lyricist partner, songwriting partner, was really taken aback because he thought we had agreed we were going to talk about it later. But Laura is such a natural that it was like, oh, it was undeniable. So it's, you might hear this from a lot of musicians. You play in a band, you get to know people really quickly, and hopefully, and a lot of times you become really good friends with them. And that's what happened with us.
oh, we're spending so much time together working. And then also, what I learned was Andrew is a great cook, and he likes to go to restaurants, but he also likes to, make some intricate intricate meals, I would say, out of cookbooks. And a lot of times we would just, after recording, we'd go upstairs and he would make, I still remember this chicken stir fry you did. Oh my God. That was a revelation.
I lost the
Delicious
recipe.
guy.
Oh,
I remember
Oh.
parts of it, but I don't think I could
Oh,
reproduce it.
such a good cook.
But yeah, so that's, we became really good friends very quickly. And then after about 6 months, it just kind of turned. And within another 6 months or so, we ended up getting married. And,
great story. It's a great story. I always enjoy hearing it because it's neat how you met through music, and like you said, people that are working in music, they're working very closely, long hours, shows, rehearsals, late dinner, good dinner, a good late dinner, a very good late dinner that it's better than ordering a box pizza or something, having a stir fry made, and all these variables together, and you have it turned into a relationship, a marriage. How long have you guys been married now? I forget.
oh, it's
Oh my goodness. How many decades? It's been decades.
That's great. That's so
not
great.
that long. It's, last week, no, last month. But, it's interesting that as memorable as it's been in playing in bands with people who became really good friends, and I'm still friends with a lot of them. You can also end up really hating people that you're in a band with. It's interesting to read the story about Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, like on the last tour, the last couple of tours, like they stay in separate hotels.
Oh my gosh. What?
Yeah, and there was an interesting interview with Roger Daltrey in the Bill Maher show, because he's touring now.
Yeah.
And it was a couple months ago, and Bill asked him about his relationship with Pete, and he was very kind about it. That he just said, that he, kind of pushes Pete's buttons, and that's what made the music so good. And that's kind of all he would really expand upon, So they apparently, have a good working relationship. I mean, Mick and Keith didn't always get together, be on the same page. So, playing in a band, playing music just brings out a lot of emotions, with people that you're working with, whether it's love or hate or something in between.
Right.
It's fascinating.
And it happens to siblings too. Sibling bands, right? I mean, Ray and Dave Davies, or like that,
Yeah.
or a couple
The
of
guys in Oasis.
Oasis. Yeah, we both said that, right? Oasis. Yeah, exactly. Liam and Noel, they don't. No, they don't. And you would hope that it would make the music that much better, but I think at this point it's so far apart that we don't know if we'll see more music from them. So.
Okay.
Yeah. I doubt there's going to be an Oasis reunion tour.
I don't think so. Be lucky if there's an Oasis Thanksgiving dinner reunion, one of those things, just having dinner with mom and dad, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's too bad.
But there are some that work, the Finn brothers from Crowded House, Neil and Tim, some of those work, and back in the day, Karen and Richard Carpenter, and just, different things,
Yeah, I love the Carpenters.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting for us that we each write on our own. We did one song that was a collaboration on the record, but as we write on our own, somehow they're still they have a connection. Like it's not difficult for me, sort of as in the role as the producer, to put together a record like Boot Scootin' and have it be cohesive, even though I wrote half the songs and she wrote half the songs. But somehow there's a connection there, even though our influences are different, but there's some commonality to it all. So, and also it gives a little bit of a different perspective, her point of view versus mine on the record. So it gives it a little more of a spread and a little more range of feelings and emotions, instead of just one songwriter on the whole record.
Right. And when you've got people that are not related coming together, band members that are not related in any way, they're just people who came together as musicians a long time ago and had done albums together, and they talk about sharing responsibility of songwriting, so it's not just one person. It would probably be a little bit different than the two of you because you have shared experiences now in your marriage, and there's probably times when one of you writes a song and the other one knows what it's about, but not really. Like, some of it, you can feel the core of what's being talked about, and then it goes somewhere else. Where you're like, I wonder what he meant by that line, or I wonder what she meant by this line, or, where you kind of have shared experiences that kind of make some of those songs identifiable as being a life experience that you might have experienced together, and some not, or some parts of it not. Must be interesting.
Yeah, when she's writing the biting, commentary in some song, like, was that about me? I think she's nice enough to if even if it is, she might not tell me. So it just leaves me wondering. I mean,
Right.
Well, my favorite thing about Andrew's writing is when he loves to read biographies, and I love when he takes that and puts it in a song. And he's done that quite a few times throughout our album history. And I just love that because I can't do that. And it's
yeah,
cool.
there was a song on the latest record called "Lost and Found," and it was the kernel there was I was reading this. There's a series out that's put out once a year. It's the best travel writing of 2020 or 2021, whatever. So it's all these short stories that an editor is hired, and they gather all these different stories and sort of put together this collection of travel stories. And there was a story in there about hobos, about what it was like, back in the 1940s and 1950s when people would, and these are not people who are homeless necessarily. These are people who just, sometimes they have regular jobs, they've got a place to live, but they just want to take a time out from life. And they want to just, jump on a train and cruise around the country with, a backpack or, very, very few belongings, just to experience, the freedom of living and not being tied down. And so that song, I love that idea. And so I use it as a jumping off point to write this song called Lost and Found. Just about, the song is sort of about, like, I take the idea of the hobo sort of being, but turn into just like, people searching for freedom. And it's really kind of I don't want to say a criticism, but just a point of view that there's so much, we're so bombarded with consumerism and capitalism. You must have all these things, and people go into debt. It's really it's not a good thing. That's why there's so much credit card debt, because they want the latest thing. I need all these things. It's like, when we really don't need a lot to live a really great life. And so it's really kind of a way to express that, that it's okay to just live without a lot of stuff, and try to enjoy life where you're having experiences and meeting people, and sharing and seeing new things. And that's kind of more what that song is about. That it's sort of based upon this sort of fictitious person who is very unhappy in their day job, and they're like, I'm just going to quit my life, just going to go out and just experience like, I'm going to create a new me, somebody who doesn't need all these trappings.
Right.
So that story was just, I just thought it was a really interesting. And there was a line in the story when the writer would talk about when he would jump off the train somewhere, and there was a hobo camp, kind of like where they would just, the guys who like to ride the rail would kind of meet up, hang out, and cook dinner over an open campfire. And they'd start talking about, hey, have you seen so and so lately? And somebody else would chime in and say, oh, I think he's still alive. He ain't caught the westbound yet. And that means he's still alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's a great line.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
So I had to use it in the song. So yeah, I like writing. I like having stories inspire me to write about things that I believe in, like how people should be more connected to each other, with kindness and generosity, and not with just, surrounding themselves with stuff.
Right.
Um, so
I think you're on the right path with that for sure. I mean, as much as my stuff is my music, but I don't want for anything else. And even that now I'm starting to realize took me a long, long time, but I'm starting to pare down my collection a little bit. I always tease my wife because my wife is very much someone who, likes to, simplify, again with things. And I don't know if you remember if you saw the Netflix lady Marie Kondo.
Oh, yes.
And she would, she'd say that, does it give you joy? Does it bring you joy? Does the item bring you joy if you're using it? And if it doesn't, you should get rid of it. So I watch some shows with her because I joke with her. I say, well, I'm just really a minimalist. We'll have company over and I'll say, I'm really a minimalist here, but and they'll think of the 20,000 CDs I still have. And
well,
so,
but there are exceptions to the rule, and that's one of
okay.
them.
Uh, but
Books, albums, that's
yes.
okay to
Okay.
have a lot
That's
of them.
those are my only vices. And as far as, I don't buy fancy cars or fancy guitars or fancy pianos. I just, I bought three things in my life: a house, a car, and a semi-fancy piano just because I had to have it to play, then that's it.
Nice.
Well, the piano, you want a good one.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it's also the kind of thing that it lasts a long, long time. I mean, we have in the house, uh, when I was growing up, my grandmother gave us a piano. It's a baby grand. And when I moved out of the house, when I was 19, my parents gave me the piano. It's in the living room, and we'll pass it down to our son. I mean, it'll last a couple 100 years.
Right.
So it's a nice piano. It's not a Steinway, but it's a nice piano, and that's kind of thing that is generational.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, I want to dig into the new album a little bit and ask you a couple questions about it. But before we do that, you brought up the books and everything and biographies. Do you read a lot of music autobiographies or
Uh,
biographies?
Not that many. I mean, unfortunately, I've read a few where I ended up not liking the person, you know, by the end of the book, and that was disappointing. Uh,
Yes.
I love the Keith Richards book, Life. He had just some great stories in there, and I love the liner note at the beginning of the book. You open it up, it's like, and there's a quote from him. It's like, "Believe it or not, I remember most of it." Something.
Right, right.
I ended up really liking him, and he shared a few secrets in there. There was sort of a time period where he was doing, you know, during this particular time in his life where he was writing a lot of songs, and he commented on how he he thought it was funny that a lot of guitar players who were trying to play the songs struggled to really get them right. He said, "Well, that's because I broke a string and I wrote these songs, on a 5 string guitar with a certain open tuning because it just sort of I was just like, moving the knobs around and creating tunings, and there was only 5 strings, and I
Right.
got they sound like Wild Horses or Brown Sugar, Start Me Up." And it's like, yeah, I watched these guitar players who sort of struggle. It's like, oh, that's how and I would like tune the guitar to that. It's like, and play the song. It's like, oh yeah, now it's easy. Uh, so there, um, so most of the music biographies I've read, I haven't read a lot, but I've read a few, and like I said, unfortunately, some of them I didn't like the person by the end of the book. Um, Probably the other, besides the Keith Richards book, the other one that I really liked, uh, and I'm not like a huge like diehard fan of this person, but he's been around the business for a long time. Graham Nash.
I'm working in that book, Wild Tales, right? Wild Tales, I think it's called. I'm working on
Lots,
that book. Yes.
yeah, lots of great stories in there. I mean, he was in the Hollies in the '60s, and they did all those Cavalcade of Stars shows where there'd be like 10 bands on the show. They each played 20 minutes, kind of thing, and
Yeah.
such great stories. I mean, there was one story. He's backstage. Little Richard was headlining the tour in England, and he Little Richard, he's backstage, and Little Richard comes storming out of the dressing room, and he's yelling at somebody who's still in the dressing room, and he's yelling, "Don't ever play guitar with your teeth again on my stage." And it was the brief time period when Jimi Hendrix, before he became known,
Right.
he was in his band.
Oh,
So
wow.
just like, and the story of how Crosby, Stills, and Nash got together at first was a great story. I mean, he was, that was around the time that Sgt. Pepper's came out, and the Hollies were very successful, but they were writing little pop songs. And he wanted to do something deeper. He wanted, like, we need to do, things like Sgt. Pepper's. We need to go there
Right.
and really explore and try to, change what we're doing. And the Hollies were like, no, we don't want to do that.
And that's when he departed, right?
He was upset, and he was friends with David Crosby because he played a lot of shows with the Byrds when he was in the Hollies. So David Crosby invited him out to LA, and he goes out, and they land at Joni Mitchell's house. He falls in love immediately. Stephen Stills comes over, says, "Oh, I wrote this song called Sweet Judy Blue Eyes." And they all start singing together, and it was like magic. And he stays for a couple of weeks, and he gets in the planes coming home, and the whole time he's thinking, I'm going to quit the Hollies as soon as I get back to England, which he did, and there was Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So just great stories like that. But other than that, I mean, I like historical biographies. I mean, there's a song, the second record, that I wrote about this guy who was one of the first Black cowboys. Around the times of the Black Lives Matter, that was all going on.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Times wrote a bunch of stories about Black cowboys in the latter part of the 19th century. And there was this guy, Nathaniel Love, whose autobiography is in the Smithsonian. He wrote it in like 1909, but he was a slave who became a cowboy. He was a slave outside of Nashville and went out to the West when he was 15, and ended up hooked up with some Texas cattle ranch, and just incredible stories, surviving, being shot 15 times, and Indians, and on and on and on. He was one of the creators of the rodeo, because he'd tell these stories about, they would be out in the range, in the middle of nowhere, right? They're driving the cattle from Texas up to Kansas City to sell the beef. And they're out in the middle of nowhere, and maybe had a few drinks, and they're just like, okay, what are we going to do? We're bored. Like, and so the challenge is like, oh, go ride the toughest, meanest bull. Let's see who can do that. And thus the rodeo is kind of born.
Right.
And he was also a crack shot. He was good friends with Buffalo Bill. Just an incredible story. So I wrote a song kind of about the subject of Black cowboys who kind of have been erased from history. I mean, supposedly one out of every 4 cowboys back then, they were Black. And I wrote a song, and Laura she liked the idea about writing on that subject, but she said, but I don't like the song. And then I stumbled upon the Nat Love autobiography and wrote a song about him. And again, it was a way to express a deeper feeling I had, the whole struggle, back when the protests were going on a few years ago, and how horrible racism is. And it just allowed me to, through that story, to comment. And there was, something that he said somewhere in the book about, well, we're all sleeping under the stars. And and it didn't matter, it's like when you're out there on your own, and there are Indians, and, thieves, the guys who are with you on the cattle drive, you're all in, you're a team. It didn't matter who they were, where they were from, you were with each other, and nothing else mattered. And I just thought that was a great sentiment. Yeah,
and through being able to, reading that and everything, you were able to illustrate that to kind of make a statement without making a statement that's like a more subliminal statement. You sang a song and you made people think without having to pound them over the head. You got to like kind of say, think about this, think about what I'm singing about, and think about this. We're all, like you said, we all live under the stars. We all sleep under the stars. And you were able to say that where maybe there wasn't another platform where you would be given the opportunity to say that without getting to a disagreement or an argument or with someone, that you were able to say it and walk away for a moment and let people just let that ferment and let them really reflect on how horrible racism is, like you said, how horrible it is.
In general, that is the challenge with writing lyrics, that you don't want to just beat people over the head. You want to be more subtle. You want to let people read in and interpret how they want to, in a sense,
Right.
that you're writing, and that's a big challenge.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be for sure. Laura, do you read for leisure? Do you like to read fiction, nonfiction, not like to read music biographies about other people?
I think I prefer nonfiction, and I'm usually reading a biography, but I also like crafting, and so I like to sew, and I've been trying to get myself to knit, and so those are the kinds of books that I'm reading right now. And no matter how I try, I just cannot get the hang of knitting. I'm about to just chuck it all and give away my yarn because it's not happening. But yeah, I guess you know, when I'm songwriting, I'm not usually pulling from books. I'm pulling from just my own life experience.
Right.
What's
Right.
going on personally. It's like my therapy. It's like, there's this thing that's bugging me, and so I'm gonna write about that. Let's see.
Which is wonderful. It's wonderful therapy for ourselves when we write. I mean, me being an amateur writer here at home, I haven't shared my songs with too many people outside of my own little community here. But it's nice for songwriters, whatever we do with our music, whether we take it somewhere further, like the two of you are doing, or we write and it gives us a sense of being able to it's kind of comforting. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It nourishes us. It gives. What would you say about it? What does it do? It's kind of it heals the soul sometimes.
Yes, I love where you're going with that. I love that you use the word nourishing. I think there is a lot to that, and I don't know why, but maybe it's just because we're, when you're confronting your thoughts about life, about situations, when you're facing, sometimes it's things you don't want to,
Mhm.
it's not like easy.
Right.
Memories are very confronting. That can be hard. And yeah, I think that's why people do it. I mean, what do you think, Andy? Does it help?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's memories definitely play into it. It shapes how you think about a variety of issues in your life. And I use that a lot to try to get something I might want to say. But again, I don't want to, just hit people over the head with it. So, yeah, a lot of that plays into what I want to write about. And it's interesting when the ideas come up, they can be so fleeting. I use my phone all the time. I'm writing notes, like something comes up, like, okay, and just sort of stream of consciousness, just write lyrics, and then go back the next day or two and like, okay, is there a song here? Do I like this idea enough? Where's the hook? Did I write a hook and all this sort of stream of consciousness? Now and then I'll translate it onto the workstation and try to because I write lyrics first and then put music to lyrics. I've had a lot of experience of writing music to other people's lyrics, so it seems to be the way I tend to write my own songs. I'll start with the lyrical idea and the spirit of what I want to try to get across, and so it'll go from notes on the phone, just like without you know, and I'm not trying to like, oh, I'm gonna write verse, chorus. Like, no, I just like let it go and just
Yeah.
continue writing and writing and writing, and just starts to just continue to reveal itself, you know, all my thoughts about that particular subject. And then I'll go back later and like, okay, is there a song here? Do I like the idea? Can I shape it now? Can I start to form it into, you know, verse, chorus, or whatever the model I want to sort of surround the song in, you know. Sometimes, you know, there's one song on the record where I didn't want an actual traditional chorus. I was trying to get away from that. So, you know, this one particular song called Tempt My Fate is really more, there's some Johnny Cash songs where the hook line, it's not a chorus, it's just the last line in the verse.
Right.
And it keeps on repeating. So I really try to do that with this song, Tempt My Fate, where the last line of the verses was about, you know, gonna tempt my fate, you know, might be great kind of thing. And so you never know where that hook's going to come. Something, you know, you start sort of shuffling things around, and I mean, I have a great appreciation for people who were great writers when they didn't live in a time of technology.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, you know, move things around and this and that. But, you know, somebody who wrote a book, you know, 50 years ago, we're talking typewriter, pen and paper, you
The
know.
erasable little pencil that you erase the and the typewriter and smear and
Yeah, and they all managed, you know, um, to do just fine. Like in that movie, Amadeus,
yeah,
you know,
right.
the portrayal of Mozart was really funny in there. You know, he
Yes.
portrayed him as kind of a, you know, absent-minded, you know, and his arch enemy, the composer of the court, I can't remember his name, was played by,
Salieri.
yes, played by F. Murray Abraham, who was great in
Right.
that. And he was just like, he went over to Mozart's house and he wasn't there, and his fiance wife showed him stuff that Mozart was working on, and he's looking through it, it's just like, where are the mistakes? Like, where this just came out, like this is just him just doing it, like,
Right.
and
Right.
that was, you know, I mean, Mozart obviously was a genius, but there he was, you know, 200, 300 years ago, just, you know, in ink,
Yeah. Page
scoring.
after a score, right? Of a score, all the parts and everything. Oh my goodness.
It was just, it was all up there, and he could just put it down. He heard it all in there. It's amazing.
It is. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Um, real quickly, you talk about the song, the chorus and everything. I think it's interesting when people don't mention the name of a song in the song ever. They, you know, it's the intended meaning of the song name, but it's never, you never hear those words in the song, or when you hear the name of the album in a specific song, like whatever the, I mean, there's not a track by the name of the album. You know, it's not like in the case of Boot Scootin', you've got the song Boot Scootin', but like if it was a song that was like a sentence or something, and that sentence all of a sudden turns up in a song that's not named with it. There's no title track, in other words. I think that's always interesting too.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Well, our friend Happy Sanchez, when uh, I know I've written some songs with him on some of his other projects, and he had a tendency to always name his songs without using anything in the lyrics. He just
Yeah,
put other title on there. It's like,
right.
like to me, I'd always name a song based upon, you know, something in the chorus, or, you know, a hook line or whatever. He was the opposite. He like
And all of
never,
his songs, most of his songs, many of them. Yeah, huh,
yeah.
interesting. Very interesting. Um, I want to talk about your briefly the discography of what you've done to this point. Make sure I'm not missing anything. But your debut album was Gone South, correct? That was the very first debut album of the two together, and maybe was Happy on that album or on parts of it.
No, that was after. One
Okay.
or two songs from when we worked with him prior to Gone South made it onto the record, but
Okay,
South, for the most part, was Laura and I.
gotcha. And then Lone Rider, which we got to talk about that one at length, and it's a very interesting story. Very interesting story. And then and then Mighty Love, and now here we are today discussing fourth album, correct? Or is there anything in between that I missed in there?
Uh, well, we did a Christmas song
Okay.
last year, um, and had a very interesting video done by our longtime video partner. He did the video. The song's called "I Miss the Tree." And it's just about people, family, the story of a family getting back together every Christmas, and how they relive all their memories. And he did the video in the style of an advent calendar that
Oh, neat.
kept on unfolding, and more scenes would come in and the family would get together and they're throwing snowballs, and yeah, he did a great job on it.
What a great concept.
Yeah, Scootin is our fourth album, which we've done. It's not the fourth album we've been doing it. We've been on this project for about 5 years, so we tend to write a lot of songs.
That's exciting because then you can decide how they're going to fit different projects. Maybe one song fits one project better than another, and you hang on to it. Say, well, I don't think it doesn't fit this grouping. Maybe it'll be on the next album. I think that's kind of fun to have choices.
It definitely is helpful.
I know that Bono said that sometimes they had like 99 songs, 100 songs to choose from to make a CD with 10 songs for you to. It's like they had 99 songs out there, and they're just having to shake that down to 10 or 12. It's like, oh my goodness.
A challenge.
Yeah. So do you feel that it's easy? We kind of touched on this a little bit, I guess, but easier each time you write an album, in a sense, you learn new things every time. You learn new things about your style, your playing, you try something different, you expand upon something. Do you feel that as you got to this new album that it becomes a little bit easier sometimes, or does it get more challenging to come up with, different ideas or different practices, different ways to play or to sing?
That's a great question. So right before we started writing for Scootin, Andrew bought me a little portable keyboard for, I don't know, it's my birthday or something. And usually I write on guitar. And so I thought, oh, I'm just going to start fooling around. Boom, boom, boom. I started writing a bunch of songs that were informed, by this little electric piano. And it was really fun. And it kind of, for me at least, it kind of gave me a boost into this next project. So you never know what could be the muse or what's going to inspire you. What were you thinking going into this
I think for Laura, she kind of hit the wall on the guitar for a moment, and it's like, well, I'll get her a keyboard for her birthday, and like she said, just bang, here come all these songs that made it onto the record within a matter of a month or so.
That's great.
Yeah, it was really nice. I don't. I mean, I think we're getting better individually as songwriters, and production-wise, I'm certainly getting better. But it doesn't get any easier, at least for me. Songwriting is still hard.
Yeah.
Challenging. I tend to write more songs than Laura. I'm more of a quantity songwriter. So she doesn't write as many as I do. She's more of a quality songwriter. So, she might write 6 or 7 songs and 5 of them get on the record. And I've written 15 songs and 5 of mine get on the record. So, they all have redeeming qualities, but for me, it's just, I just tend to throw things together a lot. More as they're all just kind of, I don't want to say experiments, but they all have certain things that I like about them. And sometimes when I'll present songs to Laura, and she says, well, no, I don't think it's good enough, or I don't really feel comfortable singing that. And she said earlier on, it's like, look, if you really love a song and I say no, you have to fight for it, and more so what has happened a few times is that I would think to myself, well, I like the subject matter, but I guess the song isn't good enough, so I'll rewrite the song still about the subject matter, but taking a different approach. And that has been successful several times, where I got the song or the new version of the song on there. But it doesn't, I don't think it gets any easier. I do think the records are sounding better, and I like the, you know, trying new things. I tried a bunch of new stuff on this current record. Unfortunately, it doesn't get any
Still
so
takes a lot of sweat, a lot of
I'm
time.
sure. Yes, yes, I'm sure. It is interesting though that you know how you said that's such an interesting situation where you challenge him, where you Laura, where you challenge Andrew to go back, and rather than fighting for that exact version, it makes you think about how it's structured, and you kind of come back with a whole different, same concept but different song. So it's kind of interesting how that works out. And like you said, it's worked several times. That's a neat way that a song will come to life in a different direction. Takes on a new life.
Years ago, I was in a rock band with a woman who was a friend of mine, and you know, that band lasted for about a year, and but we still were friends for a long time. And I remember talking to her about songwriting, like, well, what are you up to? It's like, well, I've been working on these 3 songs. Like, well, for how long? She's like, oh, a year.
Hmm.
You know, just trying to make them like really like the great song, the perfect song. And I was like, I think that's to me, I said, I think that's the wrong approach. You have to move on. And every song you write, to me, I look at every song I write, as flawed as it might be, is practice. It's practice for writing the next song, which could be great. And not every song you write is going to be great, and nor should it be perfect. It sort of comes out with all its warts, and it could be flawed, or it could be really good. It could be almost right. But every one of these songs that I look at that I've written are all just there. It's an exercise in trying to write a song that I love. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a great song, a song that I love. And some are better than others. Some get reused. But I don't think about trying to make a song perfect. I'm looking, again, sort of to express what I want to say. And some work better than others. That's just the way it is. But I just thought her approach was like, and she was so frustrated.
Oh.
You know, like, I've only written 3 songs all year long. It's like, wow, like that would drive me crazy. You know,
Yeah.
I have to move on.
Well, whatever you're doing, whatever you're writing, or you know, as far as it's music, or maybe you're a great author, I just think it should bring you joy. That's
Right.
at the end of it. That
Right.
song that you're writing, as long as it brings you joy, then it's a success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, my friend who
fun performing it.
who was struggling with these 3 songs she was trying to write and rewrite all year long, she was not having any joy. She was not having any fun, and I could really tell that. So,
Well, possibly, you know, just letting it ferment for a while seems to be the thing that a lot of songwriters would do. Let a song ferment, and maybe when you come back to it with a fresh, clean perspective, a week later, a month later, even not just necessarily the next morning, because if you keep plugging away at anything, sometimes it could get discouraging because you're not seeing any changes immediately. But if you go on a month or two and you've evolved as a person and with your thoughts and the way you do something, you might see something a little bit different in that. You know, so then then you're working on other things, and maybe something else brings you back to that song.
Absolutely.
sometimes you put in 2 songs together.
Yeah.
This is gonna work great over here.
Yep. I had watched the video for Boot Scootin', and I love it. It's a lot of fun. And I was curious. Well, first, let me say this. So I noticed that you have your same producer that had produced some other songs for you, videos, to produce the videos, David Dutton. And what I really thought was so interesting was I was reading a little bit about him, and that he's worked with Julian Lennon. And I have, you know, I followed Julian's career from the very beginning. I'm someone who can think of Julian as his own entity. I know that sometimes people live in the shadows of their famous parents, and I know that's got to be a struggle for many of them. I really respect and admire Julian for what he's done in the music industry. I love his music. I bought every single one that he's done. And I thought, how neat. I thought maybe you guys discovered David before Julian even did, because he just met him, I think, a couple of years ago. Well, I think around the time of the pandemic and everything. And they really gelled. And you found someone like that. You found him, or he's found you, or however it happened. I'd like to know kind of, how you guys initially met up with David.
And oh, Andrew found him. We were doing a different musical project. We had some videos to do, and how did you come across?
He actually was introduced to us by this person who was doing some management for us on a different project a while back, and he did a couple of videos for us then, and then
So great.
we morphed on to doing the Americana thing, and the first video we did was with somebody who our current manager referred us to back in Nashville, and that was nice, and she did a good job. But since we are out here and it was a pandemic and we were putting out another record, like, okay, well, how can we do that? And so we hired David, and he did a video for us, with a song called Devil Road that was all animation. And he's real good at that. So it was very easy working with him, and he's sort of a team member, a collaborator. He's very experienced at doing music videos.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first people to really create AI music videos, and that's
for Julian.
I read about that. Yeah.
So that's how he did for the song Mighty Love, which that was a really nice, easy video for us, because he was using AI on that video, and he said, okay, come over to my house, bring your guitar, wear one outfit, and I'll shoot you for a couple hours in front of the green screen. And we shot in front of the green screen, and we played through the whole song a bunch of times, and that's all we had to do. And then he created this whole fantastical world for Mighty Love, and it's just filled with great, great imagery.
Yeah, I mean, there are no extras or anything in that video. He just created them, with however you do that.
Using the storyline of the song.
Right. Just put code, right? And then these people were created within the video. I mean, it's so insane what they can do. And he was right at the tip of all of that. I love David. In fact, he shot the cover photography for this album, Scootin.
Yeah, he did.
Super talented.
Well, he did for Julian. He was the art director. He did all the videos. He did the album cover. He did everything. And he did this. The label asked him to create an AI video, and he said, "Okay, well, give me a month, and I'll teach myself how to do it."
Yeah.
And he did. And he said that he was sort of there in the infancy, and by the time he got to the AI video that we wanted him to do for us, he said it completely changed. It was a lot easier.
Yeah.
Got it to do it for us. And then he used it on the Christmas video. So he did it use that technology to do the Advent calendar Christmas song for us. And then, of course, with Boot Scootin', we go back to let's just shoot a performance in the bar.
Yeah, right.
It was great. I wanted that throwback. I wanted that live performance feel. But he's, we're very fortunate that we have some, people sort of in the inner team, the inner circle. David, who's doing videos. We have two mix engineers who we collaborate with. They both mix songs for us on the record. I usually have both of them mixing for us, divide the songs between the two of them. And we have a few people who we just lean on to help us, give us outside perspective on songs that we think are going to make the record.
Right.
We write a lot of songs, and then we choose which ones we think are good enough for us to put on the record. And then we have a few people listen to make sure that we're not lost in in the trees, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it really, I think, you know, you just can't do it on your own.
It's
Truly.
nice to have people like that you trust their opinion, and you know that they're not going to mislead you. They're going to listen, and they're going to be objective about it. They're not going to be afraid to, hopefully, not be afraid to tell you, to be real and say, yeah, I don't know about this one, but this one is amazing. They don't want to hurt your feelings, but they have a tactful way of helping you to see which songs, from their perspective, they think are going to be the best ones for you.
There's only one Prince or Brian Wilson, and the rest of us are really just, we need help. We need
Right.
people to just bounce things off from time to time. I mean, we can, we do a lot on our own, but we don't work in a vacuum. We have these, 3 or 4 or 5 people who really, really help us out.
Right. There was an animation video. Which was the animation video you said you had done?
Well, the original one was a sort of like a straight out animation one, which was Devil Road, which we did during the pandemic because none of us could get together in the same room.
Right.
And then the AI one was for Mighty Love, which was off the last record. And in between, we were doing videos with us playing live.
So did he get to work, or did you get to work the roller coaster segment in? Did you get to work that into the whole roller coaster when you did the cooking show? Did you get to work that roller coaster scene? I know you guys said that was one of the highlights of that season.
No, we didn't.
No, that wasn't in the animation.
No.
Was it, huh? I don't remember.
That was in one of our live streams, I think.
Oh, right, yeah, that's
Remember we did that roller coaster thing?
That was a lot of fun.
It was, oh my God, I forgot about that. That was fun. Happy did that for us, yeah.
Yeah,
Remember?
that's right. Yeah. At one point, so our friend Happy, who did a little songwriting for us to get Boots off the ground, now he's back playing bass with us. In between, when we were doing the live streams, he did the lights. And so we had our mix engineer, our mix engineer. We basically moved out of our bedroom in the house. Like we had one big bedroom that was the master bedroom. We moved out of there and set up the whole live stream studio in there because we've got curtains and lights, and that was challenging technically.
I think if I remember correctly, the last time we got together, or maybe the time before that, it was probably the time before that because Mighty Love was in 22, or maybe what, I don't know, but you guys had just finished that studio the night before, and I was kind of the test subject because you guys were going to play. You played live that day, and you were saying we just made some settings. We got up early this morning. We were resetting some lights and this and that and black curtain. I remember, and I think you said this is our first time trying to make all this equipment work, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I mean, so Eddie set it up for us so that we could do interviews,
right?
And that we could play, which without all the things that he had to do to make that work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that over Zoom, but he really.
Yeah, he managed to bypass all the Zoom settings so that you could actually play an acoustic guitar and it comes through decently. Because now Zoom settings it cuts the guitar out, it comes in and out, it's terrible.
Dropouts. Yeah.
He did it in a way, I think, where I was able to plug my guitar in, and we had a microphone for Laura, and that's how we did a few Zooms promoting one of the records where we actually played. I'm gonna have him come back in the next few months, gonna reset the studio a little bit. He's gonna come back and set up the Zoom in a way so we could actually play during a Zoom session as well.
Nice.
The problem was I had one workstation that he set it up so, okay, you can play through the Zoom. But then when I would want to go and just do a regular Zoom, the settings were all
okay.
bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So I actually need 2 workstations. I really want to, have a Zoom for just doing something like this, and then another Zoom where people ask us to play.
Yeah.
So
It's complicated.
yeah, that technology was, I mean, Eddie's a whiz kid when it comes to technology. So there again, we couldn't have done that on our own, but he made it happen.
We all need an Eddie in our life because yes, me and cables and wires and I'm lucky too. I have a few Eddies in my life like that help me get through some of that stuff, wiring and the sound and the acoustics and everything.
Yeah,
Nice.
most of us need the Eddie, and we have another longtime friend who has been our IT tech for years, and can't live without him either. You know, it's great when the technology works, but when it doesn't, you know, it's like I immediately call our IT tech, and he's so good, he's so thorough and fast that problems get solved very quickly, and it's way beyond my pay grade.
Um, I had one last question with the video I wanted to ask you. Any people that were in the video as I watched it, you know, sometimes they're just people who were hired as extras. Any family members, friends? I was watching the dancers, the two young kids dancing, and the lady behind the bar, and I just was curious if these were any. They looked like they were having too much fun to just be extras.
Oh, we had a blast that day. And yeah, so my old dear friend Lisa Marie played the bartender, and our other dear friend Greg played the guy, the little drunk guy, and he sings a lot of background for us. So
Neat.
that's really fun, yeah, to get him in there.
The dancer was somebody we work with, and David has worked with her as well on videos that we were doing on a project before Three Pairs of Boots. And then we needed a dancer, so we got in touch with her, and she came over with her husband, who's not a professional dancer, but he's learned enough to be with her because she is a professional dancer. And the kids are a couple of her students.
Yeah.
Neat.
So yeah, it was nice.
It's always fun to hear the story behind it. You know, it's always fun like that to hear that story. Neat.
Yeah, in fact, we have another friend of mine, of ours, who, when the video came out, he texted me, he goes, "Oh, you know, saw the video, you know, loved it. How come you didn't cast me in the video?"
Oh, yeah. I guess that can be a problem sometimes, right?
Well,
That's
I
funny.
was like, "Oh, well, I didn't really think of you when I was casting, you know, the drunk at the end of the night, because
Next time.
he's a real stand-up guy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it
That's
wasn't
so
quite
funny.
the right role for him.
What is the bar that we shot that in?
Oh yeah, we shot the video at a well-known bar in San Francisco called the Makeout Room.
Okay.
It was a good location. So
That's fun. A lot of fun. I'm sure people, when they hear the song, when they see the video, they're gonna love it. I know they've had a chance to see it now. It's been on since maybe the 12th of July, somewhere around there, 12th or 13th of July, middle of
it's
July.
live now. It's out now. It's up on our YouTube channel.
So yeah, I think you get some really good views. I think a couple thousand already in just a couple
Yeah,
weeks.
It's been out probably close to 4 or 5 days, I think, and it's up to like 7,000 or 8,000 views already.
That's great.
In 4
Great.
or 5 days.
How exciting that is to see the grow and grow and grow when you go back and you see, oh, there's a lot more views. There's a lot more views.
Thankful. We're so grateful. It
Yeah.
was fun.
Right.
That was yeah, that was a good time. We had a good day. You know, David's gotten so good, our director. He had, you know, his tracking sheet with, you know, every scene and a sort of a picture of how he wanted to get it. Shot that whole video in about 4 hours.
That's great. I mean, sometimes they take several days, 10-hour days, and come back the next day and still working on the scene in the forest and the scene in front of the gas station and the scene there. And you guys did in 4 hours with him. Wow.
4 hours. That shot.
Very impressive.
Bro, yeah, he's so great.
Have you thought, I mean, I know it's early because you have a couple months before the album hits at the end of September. Have you thought about what song? It's nice to be your own, you know, you don't have a record label company that tells you it has to be this next song. You get to decide what the next song is. And have you thought about what you'd like to present to people next before the album actually hits the streets?
That's That's a great question.
Uh,
What's the next?
The next song is Tempt My Fate. And we're shooting a video for that in a couple of weeks. And then after that, there's going to be a third single that gets released at the beginning of September. Song that Laura and I collaborated on called Reno. So those are the ones that get advance billing, advance release before the album itself.
Is that one going to be AI or do you know? We know.
I don't know. We are going to make a video for Reno, but I don't know what we're going to do yet. We're still talking about that one.
That's the exciting thing, is it's still fresh. It's still something, whatever comes with that, it's still in the making, still in the making.
Figuring it out.
Have you played any of these songs live before just like in local shows, or in, when you said you're doing some acoustic song shows, have you played any of these for the audiences yet?
Yeah. The last show we did, we played a few songs off the new record. We were doing, what do they call those things? We're doing this, which I don't know if they have them in Chicago, but they seem to be around the United States a lot. These Porch Fest shows. Do they have Porch Fest at all in Chicago?
I don't know if they call it a porch fest. Explain it to me and I could probably tell you. I don't know if I've heard it be referred to as a porch fest.
So there's a neighborhood in a city, and they get a bunch of neighbors to offer up their front porches, so to speak, to let bands come and play. So it happens over the course of one day, and the one we played at, the last one we played at, there might have been 40 or 50 porches, like 3 or 4 per street in a neighborhood. And there's like 5 bands per porch.
Yeah, it's neat.
It's mostly acoustic. It was a lot of fun. We the girls who lived in the house that we were playing at, they were really nice, and after we finished playing, we were the last band there. They came out, like, "Oh, would you guys like a shot of tequila? We're about to have a shot." We're like, "Well, sure." And then they brought out a good scotch, and so we were there. And then there was an after party, which of course we got invited to, but we wouldn't go because our car's packed with equipment.
Right.
We're not gonna leave that car sitting outside for a couple hours. But the Porch Fest was a lot of fun, and we did probably 3 or 4 or 5 songs from the new record on there, because we played early in the day, and then the band that was supposed to play last canceled. So they said, "Well, you guys want to play again?" We're like, "Great." So we played, and we took a couple hours off, came back and played again. But we ended up playing, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Something like that.
So luckily we have a lot of songs that we.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Yes, you got the catalog of songs to take with. That's great.
But we're rehearsing those again, and it's interesting to translate them down to a more stripped down version. That's the challenge we have in getting out and playing live. Is how do we take these full production songs and boil it down to an acoustic bass player, an acoustic guitar player, and a couple of singers.
Right. I mean, we did a couple of shows with a full band. We had a keyboard player.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was really fun, I thought, because it really changed the sound and the dynamic of the music quite a bit. It was kind of like, I don't even know, it was like almost like a garage band country.
Yeah, sort of a country garage band feel.
Neat.
And the records are kind of more polished. But
Right.
we added a keyboard player and a drummer and did a few live shows, full band, and it was a little more garage, punky, country kind of thing. A little messy, not perfect, but
That's fun though. That's fun. I always appreciate, I think, when I go to a show, to hear bands just playing. Sometimes there's some bands that were so concerned with reproducing that record down to the last note. And it's neat and it's exciting to see them live, but then you say, "Oh, I like the ones that just kind of mix it up a little bit," or just,
it's it's not really possible for us to recreate the record.
Right.
The record has a lot of tracks on it, a lot of
Mhm.
guitar parts. And so it's just, for me, it comes down to like, well, what's the most important thing that the guitar player has to play on this? And we're still trying to figure out, what exactly should the instrumentation be? For that band, when we played live, we had a keyboard player. Then there's a lot of keys on the record, but I think that for the next, when we go out and play live again, we're probably gonna have a multi-instrumentalist playing with us. Somebody who plays acoustic guitar, banjo, mandolin, violin. Like, I'm thinking that that's probably gonna be a better fit than a keyboard player.
How neat would that be? That'd be really neat to have someone that could bring all those instruments to life on the recordings. I mean, on
Yeah.
your tours, on your
Yeah,
live
so
shows.
when we come to play live wherever you are, audience, we are not going to sound exactly like the record. There'll be the
I think
songs
that's
will be the
fun.
same, so just expect something new and fresh and exciting for us as well.
Yeah, but exactly. It makes it exciting to
We're just
play. No two times are ever the same.
Yeah, we're discovering the songs. The songs continue to take a life and
Yeah.
expand what they are. So
What kind of plans do you have with doing shows? Are they mostly West Coast shows or anything heading more in this direction towards Chicago at all?
Oh, that would be great.
yeah, at the moment it's just going to be West Coast.
West Coast, yeah.
But we may be recording in Nashville later in the year, potentially, and I'm hoping to get some shows in around there. So
Yeah, that'd be wonderful to do some shows in Nashville.
yeah, around around the state, and it strikes me as being easier to play back there because everything's so much more modest in scope. Here it's like, okay, we're going to play San Francisco now. Let's go play in Los Angeles. It's an 8-hour drive,
Right.
or let's go play in Portland. It's a 12-hour drive. Whereas if you're in Nashville, it's like, oh, let's go play Memphis, or let's go play to Asheville. It might be a 2 or 3-hour drive. Things are so much closer there.
Yeah, for sure.
The West Coast is a little more difficult. So
Less traffic probably too, a little bit, quicker to get there, even like not even the distance, but the traffic wise, traveling through some smaller towns in Tennessee and versus going from San Fran to LA or San Diego or
yeah.
I think so.
I want to be respectful of your time. You guys have been so generous with your time today. I know we went off on a couple of different, I'm sorry. It's just we just the conversation flows easy. I hope on your side as it does. I just love talking with you guys. It's so easy to talk to you, and so I really respect that. I really appreciate the amount of time you spent with me today, and I want to be respectful because it's gonna be dinner time over there, and I'm sure Andrew has got something planned, or I mean, either he's planning or he says it's Laura's. You guys probably take turns. I'm sure you're both amazing cooks.
I mean, I think he's cooking tonight for sure.
Yeah.
What are you making?
Tuesdays here is one of our farmers market days. So we were at the farmers market this morning, and we got some brisket, which I'm going to slow cook tomorrow. Trying to think of what else we got at the market today. Yeah, can't quite think about what's in their fridge now, but I think we're having going to make some kind of a corn, like a creamed corn kind of thing, and some ginger rice, and not really sure exactly what else is going to be in there. So
Seems like a mad scientist.
Yeah, it's with music and cooking, both of those things.
well, the cooking is more of like, okay, what's in the refrigerator? Like, can I make? It's kind of a chopped show kind of thing, right?
But that's exciting, right? Because you to make something from the ingredients that might not be the ingredients you expected to be in there, or you're missing one thing, or you make something new because that's what you've got. Takes to a new level.
Yep.
I guess a quick question just related to that real quick before we wrap up is just, should fans of your cooking and country show expect to see another season somewhere down the road? Is that something that you're still toying around with, new recipes, new recordings?
It's a possibility. Our video promoter asked us if we wanted him to pitch the cooking show to a variety, to some networks he thought it might fit in. And that, I mean, that just happened. He just floated that idea a couple weeks ago.
Neat.
And it's like, okay, well, let's see if we can get some interest. If and when we were to do another season, we would not do it the same way as we did before, because we were total amateurs when it came to shooting video. We'd probably have our video director collaborator David
Yeah,
come in
David's doing it.
and bring in a cinematographer, and we'd have the professionals do it. It was a high wire act, wasn't like the Food Network where, oh, if I screw up the dish,
Someone's waiting with the replacement meatloaf.
yeah, no,
Right.
I had to
Stop
get it
shooting,
right.
we have to shoot, we have to make
Yeah.
another meatloaf.
I had to get it right the first time. So, I mean, I'd love to do it again, but I'd like to do it to where it was easier, because we had, we shot the first season, just the two of us, and Laura's behind the camera, and then Happy came in, and he was behind the camera, and Laura and I went in front of it. When Laura came out in front of the camera,
Oh, we got some stories for you.
oh
Yeah.
my God, there is
There's
one lost episode that never quite made it.
my favorite episode, yes.
Yes, her favorite episode.
Yes.
Ours come on as a puppet character.
The
So we had a puppet
sidekick.
Uh-huh.
who was off stage, essentially, calling in his commentary, and it was all improvised. But we like the idea of having a sidekick, an animal.
Yeah.
So it was he was known, he coined the name of his character. He was Stony Pony, and he's quite a funny guy. So it was.
I want to bring that back. I want to bring that.
Sure. Yeah.
Stony Pony.
Yeah. I really enjoyed watching them. I am not a cook. I'm the outside cook here. I cook on the grill, and even that's
Ooh.
tentative, or it could be volatile for me. But I loved it. You guys always made it look so easy. And so, it's funny how I work with kids and musicals and Broadway camps and everything. And I was just telling some kids last week, said, unless you show it on your face, people don't know you're making a mistake. You missed a lyric, you missed a line, you missed something. And same thing, you guys did your videos, and all the stories behind the scenes, all the things that went wrong or didn't go the way you want them to. But the final product I thought was very good. It made me want to learn how to cook and want to try some different foods, because I'm kind of a picky eater.
Oh, really? What's
Yeah.
your favorite food, Kevin? What's your favorite dish?
Pizza, hamburgers, and hot dogs. I'm in Chicago, and that's the stuff I like. I can eat those every day. But no, I mean, I do. I've gotten a little more adventuresome in my life, and I like lots of different Spanish plates. Just different Spanish plates, and I never thought I would eat calamari in an Italian restaurant, and I did that, and that's a big bridge for me to cross, to have calamari. So I'm very much all American food, but the longer I walk the earth, the more food I get to try. And I was very inspired by your show to even not just to eat the food, not just to try new foods, but to even want to cook, want to try to, I haven't. That's why the house is still okay. But
it was fun, and it was challenging, and I made sure I made dishes that I really knew I was pretty solidly locked in. But I'm with you. Like, I mean, I like lots of different things, and I enjoy sort of the challenge of cooking a lot of different things. But come on, pizza, I'll be there every day of the week.
Yep, absolutely. So what's the best way for people who want to hear this music, who want to interact with you a little bit, like to ask questions or just hear you talk about something about your songs? What's the best places in social media or with your own internet websites for them to go and learn more?
Well, they can, we have all the usual social media. Instagram is probably the best place, I would say, to contact us if you want to comment or send direct messages. You can always reach us. There's a contact input on our website, 3 Pairs of Boots, numeral 3. Or YouTube, you can comment on all the videos there and we can respond. So I think the 3 best places would be the website or Instagram or YouTube. And of course, we're on all the social media as we have to be. So
This is the world we live in now, right? This is how we find people. This is how people find us.
Exactly.
yep, the new reality.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's just been an absolute pleasure. And I'm honored that we get to talk again. You know what I mean? It's that we get to talk again like this, and this is our third visit, and every time is more fun than the next for me. I just wish you the best of everything as you continue with this, pursuing this next album. It's coming out on the 27th, Boot Scootin', and your West Coast shows and all the things that you have planned for this next release here that's coming out. So.
Thank you,
Thank you
Kevin.
so
We'll
much,
make sure we
Kevin.
stay in touch.
You're a delight. I always have so much fun talking to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate
I
that.
mean, where did the time go? We spent 2 hours and then it's
I
like,
know, and I'm feeling so bad. I mean, I feel bad because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they've been so nice to talk to me for this amount of time, but I'm very sensitive to the time, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope I'm okay.
we should, once we sign off, let's meet in the kitchen and have some pizza and a bottle of wine.
It's got to be thin crust though tonight. Different nights it could be thick crust, but tonight's thin crust.
So, we're West Coasters, so thin crust is definitely the way to go here.
I love it.
Although the thick, like the whole Detroit pizza thing is like really happening in San Francisco.
Yeah, here too. Actually, there's a couple of the chains are really pushing their Detroit style. A couple of the national chains are pushing it, and a couple of the regional chains. And yeah, I don't mind it so much. It's got to be the acquired moment. So
yeah, but it's usually it's the thin crust over here.
yes, same here with the cornmeal on the bottom. See, I don't know much about cooking, but the cornmeal makes the pizza on the bottom of the pizza.
Needs
Yes.
wheel.
Yes.
Yum.
So thank you so much once again for your time today, and I'm looking forward to helping to get the word out about this great new music that you're putting out. So
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Kevin.
Kevin.
thank you. Take care.